As a longtime film producer and documentarian, the typical process for deciding what my crew and I will take on is largely a search and find process. Find a story that's relevant and try to do it justice. However, as I've always said, the story that became The Quest found me. It began innocuously enough in January of 2010 at the Barrett-Jackson event in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was introduced to Lance Miller. We soon became good friends. I had known of him, but didn't know him. I'd been going to Corvettes at Carlisle for years, ever since I acquired my first Corvette in 1985. I still have it, and during the past 15 years, it became the cornerstone of a small collection I have in Texas. From that came an idea for a cable TV show called Vet Collections. My crew and I started traveling around the country, periodically filming Corvette collections and interviewing their owners. Before we parted from that first meeting, I had asked Lance if we could come to Pennsylvania and do a feature on his collection. A collection that I knew had started with Chip, and one to which he had added with his own interests. 2 months later, we were there, filming the collection and interviewing Lance. In the course of that discussion came talk of his plans to honor his late father, Chip.
I just decided, you know what, I want to try and get as many goals as what he wasn't able to achieve done, and done right. So I took it to heart and I said, you know what, I'm going to get this done for him. I really want to do this. I want to achieve it, get the car back to Le Mans.
The focus on the collection for me became secondary as I was immediately struck with the idea of this story, and I knew it needed to be told in long form, as a feature-length film. And so, it began. During the course of producing the film, our planes, trains, and automobiles saga would consume 18 months of production time. We traveled to and shot footage in a total of 13 states, from coast to coast, including Hawaii. Spent more than a week shooting footage in Europe, and interviewed several dozen individuals. Enthusiasts know that the story began at the prestigious 24 Hours of Le Mans race in 1960. Wealthy businessman and racing enthusiast Briggs Cunningham had entered 3 Corvettes in the race, a first for Corvette. As filmmakers, we received a blessing from the gods in the form of a 30-minute color film of the race, commissioned by General Motors in 1960. The results of that race laid the framework for a story that began when recent high school graduate Chip Miller became infatuated with one of the cars, the number 3 Cunningham Corvette. That infatuation many years later would become his quest.
All right, so there's 2 different continents, 2 different languages. There's so many barriers here, it's ridiculous. It's getting very difficult to put this puzzle together.
As Lance was realizing just how daunting his task in the coming months was going to be, we were tackling the myriad other aspects of the backstory of the Le Mans Corvettes from 1960. Renowned Corvette historian Jim Gessner was a wealth of information with great stories, as when he related a visit he and the late collector Mike Pillsbury paid to Briggs Cunningham many years ago. He asked Briggs if a junked Corvette they had found might possibly be one of the Le Mans Corvettes.
But I don't know. You know, we had 3 white cars, 1, 2, and 3 painted on the door. I mean, I didn't pay attention to this stuff. But he says, I know a guy that does, though. Just a minute. And he picks up his telephone and he dials the number and he puts it on his speakerphone. And all of a sudden on the other end, hello? And he goes, Zora? And he goes, yeah, it's Zora Duntop. Hey, this is Briggs. How you doing? I'm doing great, you know.
About that same time, Arizona collector Lauren Lundberg was hot on the trail of the number 4 Corvette from the race, previously owned by Lloyd Lucky Kasner.
He says we more or less traded the car to the investigating officer in exchange for not being arrested because we had crashed the car in some kind of national forest or something. And I said, so that car is still in Sweden? As far as I know, he said. and then the chase was on.
But in his corner, Chip had something no one else did. A tenacious bulldog of a Corvette historian, restorer, and close friend, Kevin McKay.
Chip was one of my best friends. I mean, there's not one person in all the years I've been involved with the car hobby, no one has ever said anything bad about Chip Miller. I mean, Chip Miller was just a lovable guy, a passion for cars, a passion for people.
Kevin not only spent years ingeniously searching for the number 3 car, but he restored it to perfection after Chip acquired it, and thus helped Chip realize a part of his dream. On a later trip to Carlisle during the shooting phase, one of several funnier moments occurred. I'd had a vision of what I wanted the signature shot to be for the DVD cover, and whatever promotion we might do for the film when it was completed. I asked Lance to get the number 3 car out before daylight and drive it to the crest of a hill on the grounds of Carlisle Events. I placed him near the car as if reflecting on all this journey had involved and why. No Photoshop here. I wanted an actual sunrise coming up behind Lance in the car. It was an oppressively hot and very humid morning, and Lance had to pose for at least 45 minutes while we shot stills and video and adapted to the changing light. At one point, my cameraman made an adjustment, panned off Lance in a shaky camera move, and then moved back. Lance had disappeared. Suddenly, he popped back into the shot. He later somewhat sheepishly admitted that he had momentarily fainted from the heat. But he was a trooper, and we got the shot. As soon as preparations were underway to ship the number 3 car to France, Lance made a call to the remaining key element in fulfilling Chip's goal, the car's surviving co-driver from the 1960 race, John Fitch. Without hesitation, Fitch was on board to drive the car once more at Le Mans.
Lance was so devoted. His father was his pal, as well as his father, and just loved his father. And that was foremost in my mind, the fact that he was fulfilling his father's wish.
We interviewed John several times. At 92 years of age, he was just as amazing as he had been his whole life. And what a life he had led to that point, above and beyond racing. John traveled in rarefied circles when he was younger, meeting all kinds of people, including the famous. He had many interesting tales and was a great raconteur. In a story that didn't appear in our film, he told a humorous quip of being at an exclusive but rather dull party one night on Long Island.
Good weather. It was winter time, but so were there. And I dragged on, and I went down the terrace and around the bushes and I took a leak against the bushes in the dark. And here was somebody standing beside me. And it was the Duke of Windsor doing the same thing.
Another of the original drivers from the 1960 Le Mans race was the late Dick Thompson. Not only was he the co-driver of the number 2 Corvette in the race, he was the on-camera host of the great film from GM referred to earlier. We talked to him at his Florida home, and I asked him if he, Fitch, and the others ever realized they were making history in 1960.
No, we didn't realize that. We knew it was the first time Corvette had been there. But we didn't realize that that was making history, that the Corvette would do so much after that.
We tried a shot using the statement of Dick from the original film, dissolving to his repeating the statement 50 years later. He was game to do it, but the scene didn't make the final cut.
We figured we'd have a good chance to make a good showing.
And it turned out we were right.
But it was in Europe, of course, that Lance's goal of fulfilling Chip's dream was finally to be realized. The restored number 3 Cunningham Corvette had arrived a couple of days before all of us did, and it was on temporary display in a world-class museum near the Le Mans track. Early one morning, we retrieved it and set out for a pre-race event on the other side of the city. Lance was at the wheel of number 3 with Kevin as shotgun navigator. I don't believe either of them had ever been to France. I was driving a follow-up van with my crew. So here we were, in a foreign country, on roads we didn't know, driving past signs we couldn't read, en route to an event where people spoke a language we didn't understand. Communication, or lack thereof, made for some funny moments.
This anniversary of the winning car.
Okay.
So I will be at Le Mans Classique in 1 month.
Le propriétaire de cette voiture l'avait faite en rouge et tout, et il conduisait cette voiture, mais il ne savait pas s'il conduisait. Il ne savait pas.
Voilà.
Yeah, I saw the article in there.
Victoire Ferrari. Et ici.
Can you
Bonjour. Tu peux me traduire ce que dit monsieur, s'il te plaît?
can you translate? Probably.
The days at the track leading up to the long-awaited ceremonial lap of the number 3 Corvette were a whirlwind of interviews, autographings, and appearances. GM had graciously given us an all-access pass to their suite overlooking the pits and track. As mentioned in the film, John Fitch was treated like a rock star everywhere he went. And then came the day where it all culminated. It had been fun, but it was also becoming a bit anxious.
I'm a little frantic right now. Honestly, there's so much going on. I found out with the French that it seems like everything's last minute, and they're like, let's go now, and things just kind of pop up.
Even John Fitch, ever the easygoing guy, got a little tense in discussions with organizer Gerard Planche over how the parade he would lead in the number 3 car was to unfold.
Why is it impossible?
It will be nice.
What?
It will be. It's impossible to tell the guys to go 2 by 2 all around the track. But
Yes, I do. I don't want to be 3s and 4s and 2s and 1.
For the cameras, you know, they're going to get next to you and photo you in different angles.
You don't have to have a big mix-up. It's to be a parade,
Yeah,
not a gaggle.
But in the end, tempers cooled and emotions turned positive as John and Lance pulled onto the track and made a little history of their own, all the while grinning ear to ear. At the conclusion of the lap, Lance may have written himself into the record books, momentarily becoming, in a literal sense, the co-driver of number 3.
I'm so pleased that he pulled all these people together, unlikely people. GM, utter upset, complete reversal, bankruptcy, everything else, and he still got their cooperation. Enthusiasm, contagious enthusiasm he has for this.
There's my dad's dream, obviously, of just getting the car here, getting John Fitch here, and then me going out on the track with John Fitch. I mean, pinch me. I mean, honestly, this is phenomenal. During the latter stages of post-production in the early spring of 2011, I sat down at the piano a couple of different times. Though I'm no musician, using my rudimentary skills, I composed a melody and later wrote lyrics that I hoped would
compress Lance and Chip's relationship into a song. We took it to a sound studio where it was arranged and orchestrated, then performed by singer Greg Barnhill. We used it as the music for the closing credits in the film. I titled it Lance's Theme.
Life can be a dream, funny though it seems. It can sometimes be a struggle. When we find that one to bond with, making sure it's for all time. People we have heard take us at our word, seeing through the heart we offer, knowing as we do our friendships follow where we dare to go. Those whom we adore and those who've gone before stay with us both now and ever. Though a dream is lost, it beckons. Someone comes along to say, I will follow through, always loving you. For once you are my inspiration. Your dream now is mine. Through the end of time, I will see it through, as my love for you taught me life is good.